Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Now in today's video we're going to be taking a look at Microsoft Bob. Yes, today's video is all about Microsoft Bob. As you can probably tell from the title, we're going to be installing it and exploring it here on the 98 PC, the glorious 98 PC that you guys know and love. And we're going to be taking a look at just what it had to offer. It's been a while since I've taken a look at this program. I did a two-part episode of time travel on this channel back, I think, in 2014 or 2015. It's definitely been a while, and I thought it'd be cool just to kind of take a look at it today. This video is going to be much more, laid back, not going to be scripted or anything like that. We're just going to be taking a look at this and exploring just how glorious Microsoft Bob is. And yeah, I am saying that, somewhat sarcastically, because as we all know, Microsoft Bob ended up being a complete failure, and it did not last very long. However, there were some aspects of the program that were incorporated into other programs, and that's something that we'll kind of talk a little bit about as we get into the program. But the first thing we got to do is actually install the program. That's what we have to do before we can take a look at it. So I've got Microsoft Bob right here on this glorious rewritable CD. We're going to pop it into the 98 PC's DVD drive, and I'm going to adjust the camera for you guys, and we're going to get right into it. So as you may or may not know, the 98 PC is in somewhat of a state of limbo. And that is essentially caused by what happened in part 2 of the NT upgrade saga that we did on this computer. You can check that out up in the cards. I'll actually link to part 1 so you can kind of get the whole story. But yeah, essentially what ended up happening is we are running kind of a broken install of Windows XP. We're booted into this auto-created user account, and for whatever reason I can't do things like set the desktop wallpaper. If I want to change the desktop wallpaper to Bliss, I hit apply. It will not change the desktop wallpaper. You can see things like the sizing of certain things, like the title bar and the window controls, and that all the menus are like this gray color. We can go into like appearance here and click on effects, and you'll see that the contents of these message boxes are gray as opposed to white. I mean, it's very interesting what's going on here, and I cannot change, like I can go into advanced and try to change like the size of the title bars all I want, and it doesn't actually take effect. Oh, now it like got rid of my custom layout for the desktop, which is kind of annoying, but you can see that it did not actually resize any of the title bars like they're supposed to be in this preview here, which is kind of annoying, but that's not what this video is about. Obviously, this is about Microsoft Bob, so let's open up my computer here. So we're going to scroll down here to the setup file, which is right here, and we're going to launch it, and we're going to get that glorious Comic Sans font. Check that out. Microsoft Bob setup. And Bob, for those of you who don't know, very briefly here, was an alternative user interface shell essentially for Windows 3.1 for the Program Manager, because this actually was released before Windows 95 came out, actually by a few months, I believe in March of 1995. And it was intended to make computers easier to use for novice computer users by associating computer tasks and computer programs with real-world objects. So your desktop kind of gets transformed into the Bob house, and then you have objects within that house that can be used to launch computer applications. And it ended up not really working out. This program is considered a pretty big failure, and you can probably see this is one of the reasons why. It's got these really weird quirks where, like, instead of behaving like a normal setup where you would just click on next down here at the bottom, it's got this giant button in the center of the screen that you have to click to proceed with the installation of Bob. So for people who were used to a regular setup, this was just kind of confusing. It just kind of, threw you off. But obviously that was not the intended audience, and we're going to say yes, we definitely want to start Bob with Windows. It detected incomplete international settings. Please open up international settings in Windows Control Panel. Can we just, I guess we're just going to get past that. But yeah, there were certain aspects of the program, especially with the Bob Assistant, which we'll get into in a moment, that I feel made the program too helpful, if that makes any sense, and it was just really annoying to the point where it would bug you for confirmation to do everything. If you've never used this before, once we kind of get into it, you'll kind of see what I'm talking about. There is also something else that I want to try. It was pointed out to me by a viewer over on Twitter named Melissa, that there is actually a bit of a Y2K bug in Microsoft Bob in the letter writer program. So we're going to try that out, but obviously we have to install the program first to get to that point. So it asks us to restart the computer, so we're going to go ahead and do just that. So we've restarted, and apparently Microsoft Bob hasn't started. Now we did set it as like to start automatically with Windows in the setup, so we'll just go on all programs here, and oh my gosh, oh yeah, there's startup. So there's no Microsoft, like, do you see what I'm talking about? This install of XP is so messed up. Can we even launch Bob? Okay, good, so it still works. So here it is, guys, the glorious Bob startup screen, and here we are at the door. And yeah, unfortunately I don't have a set of speakers for this, and yes, this is the Gateway 2000 edition. So this was a special edition of Bob that included some additional rooms, and we'll kind of get into that in a moment as well. But first thing we have to do is click on the door to sign in, and we have to create our user account for Bob. Now, the majority of the stuff that you're going to do when you're like in these rooms and when you're opening up programs is going to take place in this menu here from your assistant. Now, this is the Bob assistant. The default one is Rover the dog, who would, let me actually just show you here. If you go to search here in Windows XP, and we can search for something. Well, apparently, yeah, this, like I said, this install is so messed up. Normally, Rover the dog is supposed to be in the search function, not really as an assistant that you interact with. He's just kind of there for show, and it's also more 3D and more animated than what you have here. But this is where Rover got his start. So we're going to click here because our name isn't on the list, and we're going to say, yes, we're new to the home. My name is Rover Retriever. You can call me Rover. He wants to ask for all of our information, and this is the kind of stuff where it's like you have to put in, well, you don't have to put in all of this, but actually I think you do. I think you have to put in, like, if you press next, yes, you have to fill in everything. So, and birthday, I think you have to put this in as well, and you have to put in your gender as well. So you put all that in. Now it asks you to choose a password, and this is how you can see that this program is very much intended for novice users. The fact that right here it says the little symbols that show up when you type is my way of disguising your password. So for people who didn't know that when you type like a password that you have like not the actual character show up, obviously, well, there's this little blurb here to let you know why that's happening if you didn't know. So that should give you a bit of an idea at this program was really intended for novice computer users. Now he's talking about privacy here. Now in Bob, because you could have multiple user accounts that would use the program, each one would get their own separate room that could kind of, they could customize to their liking, and then there are rooms in the house that are kind of communal, that are shared by everyone, basically just like a real house. I mean, the concept of Bob is to really function like, to have the interface function like a real house. So you've got private rooms, and then you've got communal rooms like the living room and dining room and all of that. And so the contents of those rooms are going to be seen by everybody, but then you'll have private rooms that only you can access. So you can pick from one of these room templates, if you want to call it that. So there's study, kids room, sunroom, attic, or garage. Let's go with attic. Why not? And we'll click on next. So now Rover is going to set up the home for us. And there we go. You're all set to enter your Bob home. Now it asks you if you'll be starting DOS or Windows programs from inside. We're going to say yes. And now he's going to scan the desktop for any DOS or Windows programs. I have a bunch of shortcuts on the desktop, so I wonder if he's going to pull all of those. And I wonder what it's really going to find, because as I've said, this XP install is like very broken, so there's like nothing in the start menu. So it's not really going to find a whole lot. An error has occurred. I was looking for your programs, but for some unknown reason, your computer stopped giving me the information I asked for. Don't worry, your home is safe. You may just have to add Windows and DOS programs one at a time. A-okay. And we're going to skip the tour because the tour goes on very long, and he basically just points out, this is the door. This is the Geo Safari program. This is the financial program. I mean, he just basically goes around and says what everything is, which is honestly kind of self-explanatory. I mean, you can tell that this is a calendar. This is a fireplace. This is, well, you probably don't know what that is if you haven't used Bob before. That's Geo Safari. There's actually like a virtual version of Geo Safari that you can play. And we're going to click on just thanks. And so this is your Bob interface. It kind of looks cozy, doesn't it? You're kind of just hanging out in your Bob house. You kind of got this nice backdrop here. You can actually change those, I believe. But you have free reign to move. I mean, you can move anything around however you want. You can move the chair around, lamp around. Now, you can interact with all of these objects, but not all of these objects are going to open up programs. So you've got things like the armchair. Well, there's no program tied to the armchair, but things like the calendar and the little safe behind it, we'll get into that in a moment. But the calendar is an actual program. It's the Bob calendar, and we can click on Start Program to launch the program. So this is the Bob calendar, and it's a calendar, and you can kind of add events to it, and just basically it functions like a real calendar. And so this menu right here is where you actually perform actions. So this is where you can add an event, change an event, remove an event, move an event. I mean, there's all these different things that you can do. You can also add events by just clicking, like today's Thursday the 28th. If I have an event at noon, I can just type noon, and he says, "Woof, guy, type a description of the event here." So I'm going to type out make a video, and that's the event. So I just do that, and let's say at 3 p.m. I want to edit a video, and there we go. So I've got 2 events in my calendar. So you can also, I mean, you can click here to view your different views. So like here's the month view, here's the week view, day view, and then you have a to-do list. You can see how like you can interact with the program from here, or you can click on these buttons that like Rover has for you. So you can click on see to-do list to see the to-do list. So yeah, that's the calendar program. And to get out of this program, there's this little exit button down here at the bottom right that you have to click on to exit out of Bob Calendar. So that's just one of the programs. And again, you can move this around wherever you want. So if I want to move this, like, you know, on top of this window, if I want to move these books, maybe like down a shelf, maybe I just want the books on this side. This clock right here, it is an actual clock. This is keeping the correct time, but you can set the time, set the date. You can even change the clock if you want to resize it, so you can kind of make it this gigantic clock if you want to. And yeah, so you can do really like crazy stuff like this, like make this clock just super large if you like to make it. I mean, if you want to make it take up the entire screen, you can do that. We'll go and maybe resize it a little bit. So yeah, there's a lot of customizability with this program, but Bob itself is kind of cumbersome to use because, like I said, there's no real windows. There's no multitasking or anything like that. You can't have like multiple programs open at the same time, unless of course they're Windows programs. You can launch regular Windows programs from Bob, and you can do that by going to other options. And I believe you can click on add something, clicking on program, and then clicking on or browse on your own. So you can kind of see how many things you have to click to do something as simple as adding a program. So we're going to browse the file system, and we're going to, let's say we want to add regedit.exe. So we'll click OK. It kind of gives you got the description here. You can change this, like if we want this to say registry editor instead of regedit, click add it. And there we go. So this is the registry editor. It's got the icon and everything. We can click on this. There's our description there. We can start program, and it will open up the registry editor just like that. Now again, we can resize this and make it super large if we want to, and do all sorts of crazy stuff. So yeah, that is one of the nice things about Bob. Well, it can be nice. It can also just be super like absurd and just obnoxious that you can make the clock like literally take up the entire screen and just make everything else unusable. But you have the ability to do that if you wanted to. Yeah, apparently the household manager is just not even going to launch. Can we launch the financial guide? Okay, why are we not launching any of these programs? What's going on? I'm terribly sorry, but something has gone wrong, and I need to shut down the letter writer. You should probably close all apps, exit Windows, and restart your computer. Usually, restarting your computer helps a lot. Let's just quit out of Bob. I've actually never had this happen before. I'm sure this has something to do with just this weird install of XP that we're dealing with here. So we'll just quit out of the program entirely. OLE automation, no such property or method. All right, so welcome back everybody. So as you can probably tell, we have a slight change of scenery. And this is because, well, we're not running Microsoft Bob on the $5.98 PC anymore. I've actually switched over to the Dell Latitude D610. And the reason why I did this is, as you guys saw, we were having some problems with getting a few of these Bob programs to launch. They were displaying error messages, and I kind of attributed that to the fact that that XP installation is pretty broken, as you could probably tell with all the weird stuff we had going on. So I just decided to switch over to a whole nother machine, also running Windows XP. And yeah, we're going to check out Microsoft Bob on this computer. So what I was trying to do was launch the Bob letter writer, because as I mentioned earlier in this video, there was a viewer that pointed out to me on Twitter that apparently this program has a bit of a Y2K bug. Now, Bob itself, like if we go into the calendar program, let's just turn off tips there. When we went into the calendar program, it was able to pull up the date and everything totally fine. But apparently, if we create a new letter and we're going to, what kind of letter? We're going to write a complaint. that's always a good use of writing a letter. So this is one of the other things that Bob does is instead of just giving you like, okay, you want to write a letter, here's a template, okay, here's a word processor, boom, go to work. They take something as simple as like a letter writer and make it like so cumbersome to use because it says, do you want to put some sample text in the letter? Okay, sure. What border do you want to use? Okay, I mean, it's like you have to choose all these settings, and if you hit cancel, okay, well, you can click just start writing, but like this isn't the default option. It has these menus come up, and you still have to acknowledge like this essential first time tip. When you're finished using the letter writer, click on the green exit sign in the bottom right corner of your screen, which is the exit sign down there. And so I'm going over this tweet again because what it says is if you write something on the letter writer on any year after 1999, it will show up as 1XX, meaning that like the X being the last two digits of the year. And I just kind of tried this. Basically what I did, obviously typing out the year like in this letter is not going to, I mean, it's just text. That's not going to matter. So what I did is I just typed out like a document. So we'll say, hello world, this is Michael. And then if I want to go to other options and we want to save this letter, and we can save it normally with a new title or just so it can be opened by a word processing program. So we'll save it as a text file, and we'll save it as a test, and we'll save the file. Now, something else that I just kind of realized, you are actually able to Alt-Tab in between Bob programs. So like here's Bob Home, here's Bob Letter Writer. You can actually Alt-Tab in between them, but you obviously cannot really have like the Bob Letter Writer in a window like on this side and then have something else on the other side. That's something that you're not able to do. Alright everybody, so I actually did not record this portion of the video correctly in that previous clip, so I wanted to just come back here and actually show you how this bug actually works or how it affects Microsoft Bob. So we're here in the letter writer, and I've got a letter already saved that I edited just before starting this little clip here. So if I go to other options, and I go to open another letter, and this is the letter right here that I have saved. I can click on it and get a little preview here, but this is the letter that I'm currently writing. But you'll notice for both of them, the date modified is 5/31, which is the current day as I'm recording this video, 120. The year is 120. As opposed to 2020. And this is because the Bob, at least in the letter writer here, would use the last two digits of the year to correspond to whatever year it was. So if I was writing this letter in 1995, or if I had the system date set to 1995, it would show up as 5/31/95 instead of 1995. So because we got to year 99 and rolled over to year 2000, it just interprets that as year 100, and now we're in year 2020, so it's 120. So it's very interesting, but I may have mentioned it earlier in this video, but the calendar program doesn't have this problem, because if I click cancel here and exit out, and I go back to the calendar program here, we'll start this program, the calendar will display the year and everything totally fine. So you see Michael's calendar 2020. And if I make events here, I mean, possibly like if we were to save an event or something, if that even was a feature like to a file, maybe Bob would have some trouble interpreting that there. But I can, like, if I want to open up one of these letters here, so we'll open up my letter, or we'll just open up the one that was actually modified and click OK. I can go to other options, save this letter, and choose to save it as just a regular text file. So we'll call this test.txt in the Microsoft Bob folder. And then if I were to go into the Microsoft Bob folder and search for test, so this is it right here, you can see that the file was modified. Obviously, Windows is going to show the correct date. But Bob, you know, when you save it just in Bob and not save it as an external file, it will display that Y2K bug. So very, very interesting. I actually did not know this, so thank you to Melissa over on Twitter for pointing this out to me. But yeah, that is the Microsoft Bob letter writer Y2K bug. So we've already kind of touched on how customizable that the desktop is. We've touched on how all these programs essentially work. All of them they all obviously have different functionalities. They serve different purposes, but the layout of these programs and the way they're designed, how they can only be run in full screen and not be in like a windowed mode where you can have other windows open. You can't do any of that with any of these programs. They all function the same in that respect. So like the Bob Household Manager, we weren't able to launch this on the 98 PC. This right here is what you can do is use it to organize various like information. So like auto information, cleaning, collections, home maintenance, there's all sorts of stuff. And this is the Bob Financial Guide, and you can see it has a very similar layout. These buttons are just circular as opposed to square. Rover tells you what this is. This is the place to organize your important information. There are 14 categories of lists and reference manuals. I think that's like exactly, I think he said this is the place to organize your important information in the last program as well. So you can turn off these hints as well. So if you click on that. So let's go into banks here. I believe you can use this to like bank accounts. You can keep track of your bank accounts. So you can type out the name of institution, address, contact person, telephone number, hours, and comments, all sorts of stuff. We can go back here. There is a checkbook program as well. I thought the financial guide for a second was the checkbook program, but we can exit out of this. And again, we have to confirm everything. This right here is, Bob Checkbook. So this is where you can actually write checks and sort of keep track of your financial transactions. Again, instead of just going right into the program, you have to acknowledge Rover over here, who tells you that your checkbook expert, Lexi, is a prudent and well-balanced source of level-headed financial advice. This is one of the programs where you get a dedicated assistant just for this program. So Rover goes away and Lexi comes in. This is Lexi here, and he's going to tell us about what this program does. And again, you have to, you can go through this tour if you want to. We're just going to say cancel. Are you sure you want to cancel the tour? Yes, I'm sure I want to cancel the tour. Oh, but now we got to go through an interview. So he wants you to have your checkbook, bank statements, and other financial records handy, and he's going to ask you, do you have a checking account? This is actually kind of a long process. Business, actually, let's call it the Bob checking account. How much do you have in Bob checking? So this is all this information that you have to put into this program. It's trying to be like Quicken or something, where all right, how much money do you have in your account? I've got $8 in that account. Bank name, what is the bank that I use to keep my Bob checking account at? So this is the Bank of Bill Gates, and the account number is going to be 8090. Minimum balance. What is the minimum balance? The minimum balance is what I have in there, $8. We're going to press next. So there we go. Bob checking at the Bank of Bill Gates, account number 8090, minimum balance $8. So we're going to add that account. So you can add, let's say you wanted to add another account, you can do that. We're just going to say no. Do you have any other bank accounts? No, that's the only account I have, just the one. I do have a credit card. What do I want to call this credit card? This is the Bob credit line. And the Bob credit line, I currently owe $8 on that credit card, actually. And the bank name, this is also at the Bank of Bill Gates. And the account number is going to be 9090. Credit limit is $8. It's a good credit limit there. There we go. All right, here's a list of your accounts. I got the Bob checking, Bob credit line, and cash. I have $8 in the checking account, $8 in cash, and I owe $8 on the credit card. So now let's enter your upcoming bills and deposits. Well, it's about time that we get to bills. Now we got to go to this whole other thing. So you have to manually go through and check whatever types of bills that you have. Yes, cancel interview. Okay. So now he just takes you back to the regular checkbook, and this is where you can write checks. Oh, but wait, one more thing. I mentioned Pay Online earlier. It's a service that lets you send payments from your computer to nearly any individual or business in the U.S. Sure, let's learn more about it. So he kind of tells you about it. I wonder if this is like a subscription service, because there is a Bob email service. Like Microsoft Bob actually had, you could get a @bob.com email address, which is kind of interesting. And it was provided through a third-party service. And I don't think that Bob.com has email MX records configured properly on the domain. I don't even know who owns the domain now. It was obviously owned by Microsoft at one point. I don't think it's currently owned by them. Okay, so now we can actually start using the checkbook after all of that. So let's go to my checking account. We can type in pay to. Let's say that I owe Bill Gates some money here. And the date is August 1st, 2001. The amount is going to be $8. Yep, the amount of money that I have in my cash account. Now, this is kind of one of the annoying things is it asks you here, do you want to know more about categories? And you can't just click here to like skip it. You have to go over here and say, no, not now, I don't care. Then you can go here and actually pay or like continue writing the check. So let's say this is one of the bills. This is one of Bill's bills. And we're going to say memo bill for bill. And then we're going to enter it. And we got to enter the check number first. This is the kind of stuff. It tells you, okay, click here. Like, this is what we need to do. Oh, wait, no, you have to click this button first. It's like, okay. So yeah, we're going to take a look at the email program just very, very briefly. So I believe the email program is, I think it's, yeah, Bob email. So it's just like letter. So unfortunately, this program is essentially unusable because you have to set up a bob.com email address. And the only way to do that is to click this subscribe to the service. And it's provided by MCI Mail. You had to actually call them, and then you would basically tell them that you bought Microsoft Bob and wanted to sign up for the bob.com email service, and they would then send you a welcome kit. But I always wondered, like, what happened to the people who actually signed up for the service, because like I said, I looked at the domain and I don't think there are proper MX records set up for the domain. So if you try to send an email to an address at bob.com, it's not going to have anywhere to go because it doesn't have the MX records set up properly. And there's essentially no email provider for that domain. So I was kind of wondering, like, what happened to the people who use this service? I mean, now, granted, not many people used Microsoft Bob. That's why it was a complete failure, or at least said to be a complete failure by many publications. And so not many people would have signed up for the service, but I'm sure at least one person did. So if you signed up for the service, like, be sure to let us know down in the comments. I would actually be very curious to know just kind of how that whole process went, signing up, and then what happened. Like, did Microsoft notify you that, hey, we're going to discontinue the service, and like, were you transitioned to Hotmail or something? Were you given like a new email address because you couldn't keep the old one, or were you able to keep the old one for a certain period of time? And I don't even think Microsoft owned Hotmail at that point, so like that's why they were going through MCI Mail as opposed to just having like bob.com as another domain you would use through Hotmail. But yeah, so just kind of something interesting to think about. But what we're going to do is take a look at some of these other rooms here, but you obviously have these like decorative things that don't really serve a purpose other than just to be moved around, and you can do whatever you want with them. I can move this clock over here. I can move it on top of the door. I can take the door off the hinges and freaking move it, do all this. And you still have to click on like the door itself to move between different rooms. So I just moved back to this room. We're going to go back to the public study, and we can go in here. Now the safe here, you can click on this. This is the safe is actually its own room. So you can go to public safe, and it's called the public safe. It's not really like much of a safe because anybody can access it. It's not like a private one. I mean, you can create, I'm pretty sure you can create like a private safe. So there's kind of some, secret. There's a crystal ball in here, which is just like an object. And then you've got your Bob financial guide and your Bob checkbook here. And this is a clock in here. But yeah, we're going to go back to so you have to click this button now to go back to the previous room. But what you can also do is choose another room. You can go to another room. And this gives you a list of all of the rooms that you can go to. So we can scroll up here. And like I mentioned, because this is the Gateway 2000 edition of Bob, there are these special rooms that would not be in any of the other Bob releases, and there was like one or two other releases. There weren't really, I think there were 3 total releases of Bob, and one of them was the Gateway version that we're running here. And Gateway was really, I think, the only like OEM partner that actually partnered with Microsoft to have like special rooms inside of Microsoft Bob. I don't know if it was actually ever bundled with Gateway computers. I would assume it would be because it has their branding and everything on it. I would think they would use it to then bundle with Gateway computers. Hopefully they wouldn't have had it set as the default interface. That would be pretty painful, but I assume they might have had it like installed on gateway computers from that time period. But obviously that probably didn't last very long because Bob itself didn't last very long. So let's say we want to check, I mean, you can use this checkbox to check whatever room that you want to go to. So let's say we want to go to the Gateway Shared Kitchen. There is a kitchen in here, so we can click on OK. And now we're going to go to the Gateway Kitchen, which is kind of like this barn feel. It's got this like farm feel to it, and all of the Gateway 2000 rooms are like that. And that's probably to tie in with the fact that, you know, Gateway's logo was that cow-like logo, and they kind of wanted to, I guess, create like a farm feel for these rooms. So that's kind of why they're all like this. You see, we've got older style appliances, and we got to cancel out of this to actually be able to click on anything. So like this right here, and again, you can move these things. Actually, you can't move everything here. Can we move the clock? Okay, so there's only some things that can be moved. You can't move, like, okay, well, you can move the door, which doesn't, it honestly seems crazy that you can move the door. Like, why would they let you move the door? Because there's only one, like, this door is specifically made, it's like cut off to fit in this specific place. Like, why would they let you move it around to where, it's just crazy. But what's also cool is a lot of the, I mean, you can still launch the regular Bob programs from here, but they have different icons now to, again, kind of fit in with this farm style feel. So this up here, this like bird, is your email program. So if you click on that, this is Bob Email. This right here is your address book. This here is your household manager. And this here is your calendar, obviously. So it kind of takes on some different, I mean, it really just changes how the entire program looks, honestly, in these rooms, which is pretty cool. And like I said, the Gateway 2000, like, this was the only special edition of Bob, as far as I'm aware of, that was out there. But I just find it crazy that they can take the doors off the hinges. It's so crazy. So yeah, we'll click on this door, because again, once you take the door off the hinge, you can't click in the doorway to change to another room. You have to click on the door itself. So that's why I think it's so stupid that they allow you to take the doors off the hinges, because it's not like, oh, I want this door to be over here. It's like it doesn't fit at all. I mean, it's totally out of place. It's like, why would they let you? I don't know. It's just very interesting. So let's check out some of the other rooms. Let's go to the Gateway Shared Family Room. So here is the shared family room. Again, a very barn. I mean, it's literally inside of a barn. And you've got some cool like artwork and stuff. Like you've got this license plate up here that says GW2K Gateway 2000 with the logo kind of behind it. Pretty cool. Again, doesn't actually do anything. It's just a license plate. But you can change this. And so if you click on change look, this is how you can change what the object itself is. So if I wanted to change this to maybe a lamp, I can click this and then click OK. Well, it's a candle, and there we go. Now the license plate transforms into a candle. There we go. So yeah, again, a lot of customizability with this. Let's check out some of the other rooms. So we'll go to the door here. Let's go to another room. Maybe we want to go to, let's actually check out my private room, MJD's Contemporary Attic. So this is the room that only my user account will have access to. So this is where I can keep, like, I don't know what you would keep, like documents or something that you don't want other people to access, or I mean programs, but of course programs like anyone can launch. I mean, it's just kind of like a nice feeling, I guess, like, ooh, I got this private room that no one else can access. But yeah, this one here, to actually get out, you have to click on the panel in the floor here, and we can maybe go to, let's just go back to the public mouse house. So this one's kind of cool. This is kind of a more hidden room. I believe there is let's go to public mouse hole. And this may be a gateway specific room. It doesn't say gateway like on the actual room itself, but you can see that we've got a lot of gateway specific items. We even have a Gateway 2000 computer box, which is pretty cool. So that's the Gateway 2000 box there. We've got this computer here in the background, which is just, again, just for show. The Gateway 2000 license plate, kind of the chair from the barn that we were just in. We can click on the door here. Oh, well, again, you can't click on the doorway. You have to click on the door itself, and then we'll go to previous room. So yeah, everybody, that's pretty much all there is to say about Microsoft Bob. This program was, I mean, as I kind of mentioned early on in this video, was really intended for novice computer users, to kind of get people who knew nothing about computers into using operating systems and kind of just teaching them how computers work. But it didn't really do a good job at that. As you guys have probably seen from this video, it kind of tried, I think, too much. to help you, to the point where it just became obnoxious, where it was like everything you gotta acknowledge these prompts and click yes, like before you can do this, and you can't do this until you click on this. And I think it just honestly made it harder to use a computer. I think Windows is much easier to learn and use than Microsoft Bob, especially Windows 95, which came out a few months after this. And as we all know, that ended up doing much better, sold way better, ended up being a much more successful product. And that definitely made computers easier to use for a lot of people. Yeah, it was very, very, very successful at that. But it wasn't all thrown away. Microsoft did end up reusing one feature, at least one feature from Microsoft Bob in other products, and that is the assistant. That's Rover here. Rover himself would make a reappearance in, like I mentioned, Windows XP's search function, but the technology actually behind Rover and all these other Bob characters would eventually evolve into Microsoft Agent. Now, actually, the very same technology that powered these Bob assistants was used in Office 97 for Microsoft Clippy and the Office Assistant. They actually used the same exact file format, the .act, the Bob Actor file format for the assistants in Microsoft Office. So that technology was essentially reused, at least as far as I can tell. But yeah, it would later evolve into Microsoft Agent, which was the technology that powered Clippy in the newer versions of Microsoft Office. And it's also the technology behind BonziBuddy. Oh yeah, BonziBuddy was powered by Microsoft Agent technology. So you could say that in a way, Microsoft Bob is the grandfather to not only Clippy but also BonziBuddy, which both of those products are infamous for various reasons. I did actually a retrospective video on both of them, on both Clippy and BonziBuddy. So if you want to check those out, I'll have, I'll just put my retrospectives playlist up in the cards, but those were pretty fun videos to make. So yeah, that's just kind of a fun thought to kind of think about. But yeah, guys, that's going to wrap it up for today's episode. Hopefully you enjoyed this kind of nostalgia trip, I guess. For those of you who have experienced Microsoft Bob, you probably had a bit of a nostalgia trip, but if you never used this program before, well, you weren't missing much, but hopefully you enjoyed this video for what it is. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up, be sure to get subscribed down below, and turn on those wonderful channel notifications if you haven't already to get notified when I upload new videos, as I do that every single week, multiple times per week on this channel. And if you guys have any comments, questions, or video suggestions for me, be sure to leave those down below. And as always, guys, I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.